Tech team, welcome back to Tech with Reggie. I'm Reggie Bullock, and today this is part one of the free CompTia Security Plus training. Let's jump right into it, guys. So, in chapter one, we'll be talking all about mitigating risk and explain how resiliency and automation strategies can reduce risk, explain the importance of policies, plans, and procedures, right? So, resiliency and automation strategies are pivotal in the world of risk mitigation. It offers powerful tools to enhance the organization's security posture. Resiliency in this context refers to an organization's ability to adapt and recover swiftly from adverse events, whether they're caused by cyber threats, natural disasters, or other disruptions. And automation, on the other hand, involves the use of technology and processes to streamline security tasks and improve efficiency and reduce human error. The importance of policies, plans, and procedures related to organizational security play a pivotal role in risk management. They provide the framework and guidelines necessary for ensuring security measures are consistent, comprehensive, and aligned with the organization's goals and regulatory requirements. So we'll jump right into the threat assessment. And so here in the threat assessment, um, is risk assessment is a foundational practice in the field of cybersecurity and organizational security. It involves the categorization of threats into three primary categories: environmental, man made, and internal versus external, all of which pose potential risks to an organization's information and information processing capabilities. Environmental threats encompass natural disasters and uncontrollable events like earthquakes, floods, or fires, which can disrupt operations and data access. Man made threats, in contrast, result from intentional actions by individuals or groups, including cyber attacks, physical breaches, or theft, all of which can compromise sensitive information. Internal threats stem from within an organization, often involving employees or insiders with malicious intent, while external threats come from outside entities like hackers or competitors seeking to exploit vulnerabilities. And key components of risk assessment involve identifying the specific risk an organization faces, understanding vulnerabilities that could be exploited, and assessing the potential impact of information and information processing um, capabilities lost. And prioritizing risks that require immediate attention helps allocate resources effectively and mitigate potential harm. Moreover, coordinating with business impact analysis, or BIA, aligns risk assessment efforts with business priorities to comprehensively safeguard critical assets and functions. And by grasping these fundamentals, we can better appreciate the significance of risk assessment and protecting the organization's digital and physical assets. So, computing the risk assessment. In the realm of the risk assessment, there are various methods used to measure and quantify the potential risk that an organization might face. One of these key metrics are the ARO, or the annualized rate of occurrence. An ARO represents the likelihood, often based on historical data and analysis, of a specific event or threat occurring within a given year. The ARO becomes particularly valuable when used in conjunction with other critical assessment metrics like single loss of expectancy and annual loss expectancy. And single loss expectancy is a measure of the expected financial loss that will result from a single occurrence of a particular threat. And the formula used to calculate ALE, which is another essential metric, combines the single loss expectancy with the annualized rate of occurrence. And the formula for ALE is single loss expectancy times annual rate of occurrence equals the annualized annual loss expectancy. So in essence, the ALE represents the anticipated annual financial loss of an organization might incur due to a specific risk or threat, factoring in both the potential impact of a single occurrence or and the likelihood of that occurrence happening within a year. And these methods of measurement provide organizations with a structured way to assess and prioritize risk, helping them allocate resources and develop strategies to mitigate potential losses effectively. So, the risk assessment about qualitative and quantitative. So, a qualitative risk is an approach that relies on opinions, expert judgment, and subjective analysis to assess and categorize risk. It involves evaluating risk based on factors as their perceived severity, likelihood, and potential impact on an organization. Qualitative risk often use descriptive terms like low, medium, or high to categorize the level of risk. And qualitative assessments are valuable when there is limited data or when the assessment needs to consider non quantifiable factors such as reputational damage or regulatory compliance. And they provide a qualitative understanding of risk and help organizations prioritize them based on their perceived significance. Now, quantitative risk assessment in contrast, is more data driven and objective approach. It involves numerical values and statistical analysis to quantify the various elements of risk. This method typically assesses risk in terms of the financial impact, probability, and other measurable factors. In quantitative risk assessment, risks are expressed in terms of specific metrics such as dollars, percentages, or other relevant units. And this approach allows for a more precise and quantitative understanding of the potential consequences of specific risk. And quantitative assessments are particularly used when organizations need to make more data driven decisions about risk mitigation strategies, allocate resources effectively, or meet regulatory requirements that require quantifiable risk analysis. Um, yeah. So different risk measurements here. So risk measurements play a crucial role in assessing and managing an organization's ability to recover from disruptions. Going through some of these mean time between failures. So, mean time between failures represents the average time duration between two consecutive failures of a system, component, or device. It's typically used in reliability engineering to assess the expected reliability of equipment. A higher mean time between failure indicates greater reliability, as it implies no longer periods between failures. So, mean time to failure represents the average time it takes for a system, component, or device to fail. It is commonly used in reliability analysis to estimate the expected lifespan or durability of a product. Mean time to restore measures the average time it takes to repair or restore a system. Uh, it encompasses the time needed to identify the issue, implement repairs, and bring the system back to normal functioning. RTO, or recovery time objective, is a critical metric in disaster recovery and business continuity planning. It represents the maximum acceptable downtime for a system, service, or process following a disruption or disaster. Um, RPO, or recovery point objective, is another critical metric in disaster recovery and data protection. It defines the maximum allowable data loss or point in time to which data must be recovered after a disruption or loss event. So, these are some of the essential tools and metrics to assess the resilience and plan for contingencies. So, acting on our risk assessment here. So, risk avoidance is a proactive strategy that involves identifying a risk and then making a deliberate decision to no longer engage in actions or activities associated with the risk. In essence, this approach seeks to eliminate the risk entirely by ceasing the related actions. For example, an organization identifies a particular software application as a security risk. They may choose to avoid that risk by discontinuing the use of that application altogether. While effective is it's effective in eliminating the risk, risk avoidance may also come with potential drawbacks such as foregoing certain opportunities or capabilities. Risk transference involves sharing some or all of the burden of a risk with another party. Typically, this is done through mechanisms like insurance, contracts, or outsourcing. And by transferring the risk, an organization can mitigate the financial impact or operational consequences of a risk, making it more manageable. For instance, a company might transfer the risk of a data breach to a cybersecurity insurance provider, reducing the financial fallout in the event of a breach. While risk transference can be a valuable strategy, it's essential to carefully consider the terms and costs associated with such arrangements. And risk mitigation is a broad strategy that can be implemented in various ways. The likelihood or severity of a risk happening, it involves taking proactive steps to address the risk without necessarily eliminating the risk entirely. And risk mitigation measures can include implementing security controls, conducting regular maintenance and testing, training employees, regularly updating software um, might mitigate the risk of an intrusion. Educating staff on best practices for cybersecurity. Risk mitigation aims to make risk more manageable and less likely to result in significant harm. So, risk acceptance um, is a strategy that many employ to determine the cost uh, of implementing other risk management options such as risk avoidance, risk mitigation, risk transference. It outweighs the potential harm or consequences of the risk itself. And that, in essence, risk acceptance involves acknowledging a certain level of risk and choosing not to invest additional resources in trying to eliminate or reduce the risk. And this decision is typically made when an organization evaluates the potential impact of a risk, considers all the available resources, and assesses the feasibility and cost effectiveness of alternative risk management strategies. If the cost of implementing risk mitigation measures or transferring the risk to another party is deemed too high in comparison to the potential harm that would occur if the risk materializes, the organization might opt to for risk acceptance here. So, risk and cloud computing. So, they're intertwined concepts that organizations must consider when adopting cloud services. Cloud computing involves using the internet to host services and store data remotely as opposed to hosting and managing them locally on their physical servers. And while cloud computing offers numerous benefits, it also presents various risks and challenges. And we'll explore the three common types of cloud computing and risk associated with each. So, for platform as a service, the benefits are platform as a service provides a platform and development environment that enables organizations to build uh, deploy and manage applications without worrying about underlying infrastructure. And they can enhance their agility and reduce the burden of the infrastructure management. Now, the risk associated, it simplifies development and can introduce dependencies on the cloud provider's platform, making it challenging to migrate applications elsewhere if needed. So, organizations may also face security concerns when related to data access and management within that platform as a service based. Um, Software as a service, the benefits: it offers ready to use software applications. It's accessible over the internet. This model eliminates the need for software installation and maintenance, and it reduces operational overhead. But the risk are organizations use SaaS and trust data and application security to that SaaS provider. And this reliance can raise concerns about data privacy, availability, and the provider's ability to meet compliance requirements. So, loss of control over software customization and updates can also be a risk factor. And infrastructure as a service, the benefits are it provides a virtualized computing resources, including servers, storage, and networking, allowing organizations to scale infrastructure dynamically. It offers more control over underlying infrastructure, but the risk um, is managing security within the infrastructure as a server requires careful configuration and maintenance of virtualized resources, and miscommit configurations can lead to data breaches. Additionally, infrastructure as a server users bear more responsibility for securing their virtual infrastructure compared to software as a service and platform as a service. So, in general, cloud computing risks related to data security, compliance, data residency, and service availability. And organizations, they must assess these risks based on their chosen cloud service model and provider, and implementing robust security measures, conducting regular risk assessments, and ensuring compliance with relevant regulations are essential steps in mitigating cloud related risks. So, risk again here. So as we talked about, cloud computing, it has various benefits, including scalability, cost efficiency, but it also brings forth several risk related issues to organizations need to address. Right. So you have regulatory compliance, user privileges, data integration, and segregation as stand out as like critical considerations. So for regulatory compliance, right? Data privacy and compliance. When organizations migrate sensitive data to the cloud, they must adhere to data privacy regulations such as GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, or HIPAA, like Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and in the healthcare sector. So failure to comply can result in severe penalties. And data residency. Some countries have strict rules regarding where data can be stored, which can conflict with cloud providers, data center locations. This creates a challenge in ensuring data residency compliance, audit, and transparency. So regulatory bodies often require organizations to maintain audit trails and provide transparency into data handling. In the cloud, maintaining control and visibility over data can be challenging. User privileges. So IAM, or identity access management, cloud services typically require a robust identity access management strategies to manage users' access and privileges effectively. Overly permissive user privileges can lead to unauthorized access, data breaches, and data loss. And credential management, securely managing user credentials such as passwords and access keys, is crucial. So, weak authentication practices can compromise cloud accounts, making them vulnerable to attackers. For data integration and segregation, data integration, organizations use multiple cloud services and platforms for various purposes. Integrating data between these services while maintaining the data integrity and security can be complex and challenging. And data segregation ensures that data is correctly segregated within a multi-tenant cloud environment. Um, and inadequate segregation can lead to data leakage and unauthorized access here. So, addressing these risk related issues involves a combination of technological solutions, policies, and best practices. Some of the things is to conduct like thorough risk assessments and audits to identify regulatory compliance requirements and then those gaps from where your organization is to what that actual compliance requirement is. Implement strong access controls. Utilize DLP mechanisms, data loss prevention, encryption. Establish a clear classification policies, determine how data should be stored, handled, and shared, and then regularly monitor and audit cloud environments to detect and respond to incidents and policy violations. So next, the risks that are associated with virtualization and breaking out of the virtual machine, and then the network and security controls can intermingle, right? So virtualization technology brings many advantages to IT infrastructure, such as improved resource utilization and flexibility, but it also introduces specific risks and challenges, right? So breaking out of the virtual machine. So hypervisor vulnerabilities. The hypervisor, a critical component of virtualization, manages multiple virtual machines or VMs on a single physical host. If a malicious actor gains control over the hypervisor, then they can potentially escape the confines of their VM and compromise the host system or access other VMs that are running on the same host. And this is known as a breakout attack. The isolation risks, while virtualization provides isolation between VMs, vulnerabilities or misconfigurations can lead to breaches in this isolation. And attackers may attempt to exploit these vulnerabilities to move laterally from one VM to another within the same host. So network and security controls are intermingling and resource sharing. So VMs on the same physical host often share the same network and storage resources. If one VM experiences a security breach or misconfiguration, it may affect the security and performance of the neighboring VMs, leading to potential data leakage or service disruptions. And inadequate segmentation. If a network segmentation within a virtualized environment is not correctly configured, unauthorized communication between VMs might occur, and this could expose sensitive data to unauthorized access users. So, to mitigate these risks with virtualization, organizations can use hypervisor security, regular updates, keep the hypervisor software up to date with the latest security patches and update to minimize vulnerabilities, hardening, follow best practices for hardening the hypervisor configuration to reduce the attack surface. VM isolation and segmentation, network segmentation. Implement proper network segmentation to restrict communication between VMs based on the security requirements, access control, and for strong access controls and permissions within the virtualized environment to prevent unauthorized access between VMs. Monitoring and auditing, security monitoring. Implement continuous monitoring and security auditing to detect unusual or unauthorized activities within the virtual environment. And then anomaly detection. Employ intrusion detection systems, IDS and IPS, intrusion prevention systems, to identify and respond to potential breakout attempts. And employee training, like staff education, ensuring the IT staff and administrators are well trained in virtualization security best practices to reduce the risk of misconfigurations and human errors. So, for developing policies, standards, guidelines, and procedures, um, it's a critical aspect of organizational governance, ensuring that employees and stakeholders understand the expected behaviors and standards. All right. So, for implementing policies, the number one is the guidance for expected behavior. Policies serve as a framework that provides employees and stakeholders a clear guidance on what is expected of them in various aspects of their roles and responsibilities within the organization. They help individuals understand the boundaries and the standards they need to adhere to. Number two is consistency and fairness. Policies promote consistency within decision making and actions across the organization. When everyone is aware and follows the same policies, it helps create a fair and equitable environment where rules are applied consistently to all individuals. Number three is legal and regulatory compliance. Policies often reflect legal and regulatory requirements relevant to that organization's industry or jurisdiction. Risk mitigation. Well crafted policies can help mitigate various risks, including security breaches, data privacy violations, and ethical misconduct. Number five is alignment with organizational goals. And policies are typically aligned with the organization's mission, vision, and strategic goals. Implementing policies help ensure that employees' actions and decisions contribute to the achievement of these physical objectives. So, well written policies. All right. So, we're going to break this down into six parts. Number one is the guidance for expected behavior. So, policies serve as a framework that provides employees and stakeholders with clear guidance. All right. Actually, no, I'm going back. So, number one, well written policies focus on clarity and conciseness. And effective policies are written in a clear and concise manner using language that is easily understood by all relevant parties. Ambiguity or confusion can lead to misinterpretation and non compliance. Number two is specificity. Policies should be very specific and address particular issues or areas of concern. They should provide a detailed guidance on what is expected and what actions are permitted or prohibited. Number three are consequences for noncompliance. A crucial component of well written policies is the explicit statement for consequences for noncompliance. These consequences should be fair and proportionate to the violation and should be communicated clearly to all stakeholders. Number four is accessibility. Policies should be readily accessible to all individuals who need to be aware of them. They should be well organized and available through appropriate channels such as the internal policy repository or an employee handbook. Number five is the review and revision. Policies should be regularly reviewed and updated to ensure they remain relevant and aligned with the evolving organizational needs and industry standards and legal requirements. And then number six is training and communication. So organizations should invest in training programs and communication efforts to ensure that employees understand the policies, their importance, and promote awareness and adherence. So, key areas of a good policy. So, we'll jump right into it. The scope statement. So, the scope or the purpose, the scope statement outlines the policy's intended objectives and what it aims to accomplish. It provides clarity about the policy's purpose and relevance. And the coverage, it specifies which documents, laws, regulations, and practices the policy addresses, helping stakeholders understand the context and the boundaries of the policy. Number two, the policy overview statement. The goal, the policy overview statement highlights the overarching goal of the policy and why it is important for the organization. It provides a clear understanding of the policy's significance and compliance. This section includes guidance on how individuals and entities and within the organization can comply with the policy's requirement. The policy statement, clarity. The policy statement should be as clear, concise, and unambiguous as possible. It defines the policy's rules, expectations, and procedures in a straightforward manner, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Accountability statement. The accountability statement provides readers with information about who to contact if they have questions, need clarification, or discover a problem related to the policy. It establishes accountability and point of contact for policy related inquiries or issues. Exception statement, produce procedure for deviation. The exception statement outlines specific guidance for situations in which may be necessary to deviate from the policy. It typically includes defined process or procedure that might be followed when seeking expectations or waivers. So measuring and weighing risk. So the scope and purpose. Define the scope. Clearly state the scope of standards, specifying which aspects of risk management they cover and what areas they apply to within the organization. The purpose. Articulate the purpose of the standards, emphasizing how they contribute to the organization's risk management goals and objectives. Roles and responsibilities. Identification of key roles. Outline the roles and responsibilities of individuals or teams involved in implementing and adhering to standards. Define who is responsible for specific tasks related to risk management. Accountability. Clarify the accountability structure, ensuring that responsibilities are assigned and understood throughout the organization. Reference documents. List supporting documents. Identify the reference documents that are integral to the understanding and implementation of standards. And ensure that all relevant reference documents are readily accessible to those who need them for compliance. Performance criteria. Establish measurable performance criteria that helps assess compliance with standards. These criteria should provide clear benchmarks for evaluating the effectiveness or risk management process, and define KPIs or key performance indicators or metrics that align with the standards and facilitate ongoing monitoring and reporting of related activities. Maintenance and administrative requirements. Specify the process for updating and revising the standards as needed from the current and align with the changing circumstances, and describe administrative requirements for implementing and maintaining the standards, including documentation, record keeping, reporting, and communication protocols. So, effective guidelines play a role in helping organizations implement and maintain security standards by providing practical information on how to carry out policies and adhere to established standards. To ensure that guidelines serve their intended purpose effectively, they should include the following four minimum components. Scope and purpose. Clearly define the scope and the guidelines by specifying which policies and standards they pertain to and the specific areas or processes they cover within the organization. Articulate the purpose of the guidelines, explaining why they're essential to the organization and how they contribute to successful implementation. Roles and responsibilities, again, clearly outline the roles and responsibilities. Guideline statements. Provide a detailed guideline statement that offers step-by-step instructions, recommendations for best practices for carrying out specific tasks. Operational considerations. Include operational considerations that offer practical insights, examples, tips for implementing the guidelines in the real world scenarios. So business policies, primary, they focus on mandatory vacations, job rotation, separation of duties. Um, all of these things are put in place to ensure that um, inside action, so one person doesn't have all of the access to insider information that could potentially cause harm to the company. So when you have job rotation or a mandatory vacation, when that person leaves out for their vacation or they rotate jobs, when another individual steps in, they're able to see what that person has been doing and determine if, they are following the policies and procedures, or if they are conducting themselves in a way that they shouldn't be. And acceptable use policies, adverse actions, right? Um, er, so non-disclosure, onboarding, a lot of these are things that we've seen before, but these business policies should be set in place at all organizations, and really this is to ensure that um, everyone in the role is really um, doing the jobs that they're supposed to do, that they are not taking advantage of the access or the authorization that they have to access data systems and information, and making sure that they are not actively becoming an insider threat or actually are the insider threat to an organization. Um, and adverse actions, general security policies. So, all of these are standard policies that you've probably seen over time. Um, so, false positives, right? In the security environment, um, false positives are security events that appear to look like the real thing when they touch like a security event information management system, like a SIM, when you might have something that comes through that looks as if it is malware or looks as if it is unauthorized user access. Oftentimes, when intrusion detection systems or intrusion prevention systems set that our parameters are set, they're screening every single endpoint connection and it's logging it into a data set that is reviewed by this intrusion detection system or intrusion prevention system. And from there, it's constantly flagging alerts. And what you want is all false positives and no true positives. A true positives is the real thing. It's actually an incident. And so, but the thing about being a security professional is that you have to stay vigilant and you have to look through all of the false positives to verify and ensure that they are false positives. And a lot of times, this is done through automation, where automation comes into play here. And so, risk management, business impact analysis. And so, the business impact analysis is another crucial part that is kind of joined with the risk assessment. And so, once you identify the risk, the next thing is to determine the impact of that particular risk to the business, and and identifying um, and tabletopping what will happen, right? So this is where a tabletop exercise joined with the incident response plan, joined with the risk assessment. So all of those things, they come into play. And so this is where all of your stakeholders will come to a table to discuss what to do, what, identify, okay, this is the worst possible thing that can happen, um, and how to the business, this is the highest impact possible from this particular risk, and what is our response, what is our recovery and remediation um, techniques and steps and procedures that we have in place to respond and to this. And so that's part of what a business impact assessment does. um, and so that's what we have here for the end of uh, part 1 of 12 of our free cybersecurity CompTia Security Plus training. I'm Reggie Bullock. Hopefully, this was informative. Hopefully, you guys got a lot of takeaways from this. And I will see you in the next one. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions or anything like that, drop them in the comments below. I will respond. See you in the next one. Peace.